I'm a cardiac surgeon. I do difficult things, but to actually introduce someone like Dr. Ricard stated, I think it's more difficult than doing a cardiac surgery. It's a Herculean task for me to actually introduce him, but I will try my best. Dr. Ricard was born in France in 1946, son of French philosopher. Please pardon me if my pronunciation of French is a little bit off. Jean-Francois Strebel and painter François and Lee Jumel. He's a Buddhist monk, humanitarian, author of a lot of books, translator and photographer. Actually, he's a scientist as well. He has a doctorate in cellular genetics. Actually, he did that in 1972. I think 1 year after I was born. Left to settle actually permanently in our Himalayan region, and now he has been living here for more than 50 years. He is the author of numerous books, and then his books have been translated into more than 23 languages. It's almost impossible. If I take the name of all the books, it will take like hours and hours to go through that. And he also is a French interpreter to 14th Dalai Lama since 1989, and he translates philosophy and practices of Tibetan Buddhism into French and other languages. He's a man of different facets. There are a lot of. He also does photography, and then his photography has been published in different newspapers and then publications in French and US. And his latest work is an expanded edition of A Still Journey, the Himalayan Scene from the Hermitage. So, and his works have been exhibited at different galleries in New York, France, Monaco, and name any place. His work have been actually exhibited, and his images have been published in numerous magazines, including National Geographic and others. And he has done a lot of scientific contribution as well. He is an active member of the Mind and Life Institute, which is an association which actually seeks to deepen the scientific understanding of how the mind works. I have difficulty in understanding that, with the aim of reducing inner suffering. So like Dr. said about the happiest living man, and he has a lot of research projects, especially brain neuroplasty, emotional balance, and aging. I think that I need that aging, with a focus on compassion meditation. And I'm bad at English, vocabulary. I always thought empathy and compassion were same, but his research has actually enabled, in particular, to clearly show the difference between empathy and compassion. And he has co-authorized so many numerous scientific books as well. And besides this, he is a great human being. He has done a lot of humanitarian works, and his humanitarian commitment have been all the sale of his books and photographs and conferences and whatnot are actually donated to the humanitarian association he created, Karuna Sechen, and he founded the vision of compassion in action, and he has worked for the benefit of most disadvantaged population, over 400,000 beneficiaries so far per year in northern India, Nepal and Tibet. So I would like to welcome Dr. Ricard for the talk and act of compassion, and this has been a great pleasure to actually introduce such a man of such a stature. Thank you.
So, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, and to tell you the truth, I'm here to express my admiration, my support, my rejoicing in the extraordinary work of our dear friend, Dr. Karuna and his team, because he's one of these great inspiring figure in Nepal, where I met quite a few, and this out of rejoicing and support and admiration that I'm so happy again to be exchanging with him and all his team and meet some new friends and some people I already know. And yes, you know, it is so clear that human life as such is so precious. You know, the potential of human life is amazing. Look at all the achievement that humanity has done. So what better gift you can make than to save the life of a child so that he can flourish and bloom and express the full potential of that life, both for himself or herself and for society. So this is really, as you pointed out, one of the most extraordinary gifts, not speaking about return on investment only, but just as something the most precious care you can do is to save life. And as you said, you know, there is still so much to do in that field. So thanks to the UN Millennium Goal and now the 17 points of sustainable development and so forth, if I'm not wrong, globally I think over 30 years, the child mortality in the world sort of divided by half over 30 years. But there's still, it's always the same. The poorer the country, the more difficult it is to get off the ground. And from our own experience, Karuna Sechen, 23 years of existence, Sunita Sharma, who is the country director, is with us. So we did a lot of works in the most remote areas. And I remember once I went with two doctors, British doctors, to Sichuan province, in China, Tibet. And we interviewed about 200 women of all ages. Not a huge survey, but they have a lot of children. Why? Because many die, as you said. So, and out of those 200 mothers, 7 out of 10 have lost a child sometime in their life. So maybe not the first year, but that was so striking. So therefore we thought, with a Vietnamese friend who worked for the WHO, we had developed a program in Africa and other places to develop a program we call Save the Mother and Child. And my friend Raphael, who is here, she worked for 5 years in very remote nomadic area for very simple education. Before that, you get the husband who come and cuts the umbilical cord with a rusted knife. Things like that. And if the mother bleeds, they don't know what to do. And if the child don't breathe, they think he's dead. When half of the time you can clean the mucus and do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. So for 5 years, Raphael led this program. We could not evaluate because we didn't have enough people, but the same team that taught us and some nurses there, they did in a valley near Lhasa, so they could evaluate. And over 5 years, through this kind of program, there was a reduction of 30% of mother and child mortality. Of course, that was. So this is something that has always been at the heart of what we want. And when we speak of compassion or altruism in action, what better we can do than save life, and especially save life that has a huge potential ahead. So when we say act of compassion, why act? Because of course, we can be full of compassion, but if we don't do anything, it's like having maimed hands. We don't have hands, we want to help. Or even we say like a mother who has a hand tied on her back and she sees her child be taken out by the river, she can't do anything. So compassion needs to be put in action. But then the other aspect is wisdom, discernment, to be wise. Because a compassion that is not wise can be blind. And then we make full of good ideas, but then they are not targeted, they are not efficient. So the efficacious altruism and efficacious compassion depends on wisdom. And wisdom is connected with knowledge. So that's why we say in the Buddhist teaching that wisdom and compassion are like the 2 wings of a bird. You know, a bird doesn't fly just to one wing, and you don't train one wing first and then later the other one. Both have to grow together. And then compassion will be informed by discernment, by wisdom, by knowledge, and then knowledge will be put in action through compassion. So that's really the way to proceed. And now, I always keep in mind what Dalai Lama said about compassion. He said, religion, whether you want to be religious or non-believer, this, of course, in many countries, we just inherit that from our parents, from our whatever background. But he said it should really be a conscious choice when we can think and we decide, okay, I want to follow a spiritual life or believe in something. But he said, compassion is not a choice, it's a complete need. No matter, it's more fundamental even than religion. It's like the foundation of all different religions. Any religion said, even theistic religion, that God is hate. Everybody says, whether they actually apply it or not, that's another story, but God is infinite love. So it starts with that. The idea, don't do to others what you don't want them to do to you, is the most universal principle in all religion, in philosophy, in humanistic approach, in good human relation. And as the Dalai Lama said, religion is not obligatory, but compassion. We need from the first time the baby is born, for the first minute. Without the compassion and care, we'll not survive. That's it. And we need also, at the last part of our life, when we are completely dependent on others, if they don't care for us, then we will not survive. And then throughout our life, we need to receive and give love. One of the most detrimental mental states, maybe hard to believe here, but especially in so-called developed countries, is loneliness. The feeling of not belonging to society. Even in the midst of a lot of people, you say, I don't belong, I have no one that can really care for me, or I can go for advice, for help. So that feeling of loneliness is very acute. In the USA, for instance, at least 30% of people have a strong feeling of loneliness every few weeks. And the effect of it is really detrimental for mental health, addiction, longevity. It's a broad factor of deleterious effects. So that's what? What does that mean, loneliness? You don't feel connected, the sense of common humanity. And you don't feel that there's no one to give love, there's no one to receive love from. Another very striking observation is people who are in acute depression. This is one of the mental disease. You mentioned the number of days that we lose in life, in active life. So besides those who die prematurely, for those who live their full life, now according to WHO, 40% of the days we cannot function in life are due to mental disease, whether it's depression, Alzheimer, schizophrenia, all kinds of things. And then the budget, usually our government for mental health is usually quite small. My friend Lord Layard, Richard Layard, he was a great advocate in the UK for increasing the budget. It was only 10% for a problem that caused 40% of, incapacitation in life. So I'm very happy that you have something about also mental health in your institute. So in that sense, so one of the symptoms of someone who is deep in depression, and that was very striking, is that one of the characteristics is the incapacity to feel and to give love. Even people try to care for them, it doesn't penetrate inside. And they don't feel the notion of giving love. So that's something that is so nurturing to be able to express kindness, care, compassion. That's what makes the most beautiful moments in life, when we can do something for others without any agenda, without further interest, just for the very sake of helping someone, of relieving suffering. So Genuine altruism does exist. No, we don't always do things for others, thinking, oh, he will help me in the future, or I do a little bit for that person and he will do more for me. Of course, there are so-called interested altruistic acts, but there's also so many of acts of genuine kindness, genuine compassion, genuine care. And that should be not only at a personal level, it should be in the institution level. I know a French philosopher, a lady, who is the director of one of the Paris University, and she said she's a great advocate of the notion of care. And she said in her books that care should be introduced in institution. You know, in every office, we need to have this idea, we need to care for each other. We need to promote cooperation rather than competition. You know, and some journalists say, no, care is something personal you do for becoming a good person, but it's nothing to do with institution. So what more do you need than care in the institution, in the government? No, we call a government official, we say it's a public servant. That means we are here to serve the best we can. So, so once I remember, you know, for some strange reason, you know, this monk like me, I was invited at the Davos World Economic Forum. I don't know what I was doing there, but anyway, they asked me to come, so I just showed my nose. So one night there was a, you know, they always do these dinners and different talks. So there was one big company, they were doing a talk on leadership. And they had invited Christine Lagarde, a big shot. And she could not come, so I knew the person, they said, can you replace her? I said, well, they're going to be surprised if to see me coming instead of Christine Lagarde. Anyway, I went there. I said, well, I'm going to tell about leadership. So I really thought deeply, and I thought, what is a good leader? A good leader is someone who is totally dedicated to serve the purpose either of a company, or a state, a government, people, whatever walks of life. A leader should be actually leading in serving efficiently and leading in showing the example. I read once a survey about, you know, how the big leaders in companies and other walks of life, and those who are the most admired. So what was the criteria? One was visionary, and we can see how visionary is KIOCH's project. Another one was humility, someone who is here to serve, and not just to look like a big shot. So that's part of the care idea. That's part of the compassion. So we know in Buddhism we have a few basic concepts. The main one is unconditional altruistic love. You know, that's Maitri in Sanskrit. So now, this a priori, you don't exclude anyone from your heart. No, you just wish may everyone find happiness and the cause of happiness. No exception, my neighbor or this and that, everyone. And even these obnoxious people, you know, harmful people, and we have a bunch of them in the world today, you don't wish them to succeed, you know, in massacring people and all that. You may wish from the depth of your heart, may those mental poisons of hatred, greed, indifference, cruelty, may that somehow disappear from this person's mind. May the education system that allowed someone like that to come at the position of power, may that change to education, to different values in society. So that's the major thing, is the benevolence, kindness, altruistic love. Now, when that altruistic love meets with suffering, technically it becomes compassion. It's a subset of unconditional love, which when it encounters suffering, instead of the general wish, may everyone find happiness and the cause of happiness, it may be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Of course, there's a lot of suffering. So, you mentioned in your introduction about the difference between compassion and empathy. So since many of you are involved in the medical world, the caring world, also social workers, burnout is a huge problem. In the US, 60% of medical personnel, caregivers, social workers, are experiencing or will experience burnout in their life. That means emotional exhaustion. They can't do it anymore. It's too much. So another word for that is empathic distress. Because interestingly, and so in the medical world, they call it compassion fatigue. But I work with Tanya Singer, who is a neuroscientist, and we show that it's not empathy fatigue, compassion fatigue, it's empathy fatigue. So what's the point? Because you mentioned that. Empathy is a very important quality that we have through evolution, which is the faculty to know what others are feeling. Are you suffering? Are you joyful? I come, I see you with a big smile. I smile before even I know why you are smiling. If I see you are suffering a lot, I resonate with that suffering and I feel the suffering. And what my friend Tanya Singer showed that in the brain, when you resonate with the suffering of someone else, like someone who's really in pain, the areas of the brain, the networks which are activated are actually the network of pain. So you truly suffer of the other's suffering. Now imagine you are a care worker, or a nurse, or a doctor, or a surgeon. And of course, patients either they cure or they die, but usually it's quite rare that they suffer for 30 years. But imagine that day after day after day, patient after patient, you suffer because of their suffering. If that's all you have, then you become exhausted. The burden becomes too much. And so empathy is the effect that the suffering or the joy of others has on you. Now, compassion is different. Compassion is completely others-oriented. It's not the effect it has on you, it's the wish, the determination to remedy to others' suffering. It's like the doctor on the battlefield. If he starts or she starts crying, the moment you see someone who is wounded, or if you start crying before doing a heart surgery, where will you go? So you need the full determination, I'm going to save that person, and that is not getting exhausted. So we found that if we practice compassion for people who are in empathic distress, it becomes like an antidote, it's a remedy, it's a balm. Compassion increases your courage, and just empathy alone will deplete your emotional resources. So it's a very important concept, especially in the medical world. We need to grow compassion. We need to practice compassion ourselves in our hearts and express it, and then you will never get tired, as promised. So that's a very important point. So on the personal level, there's so many advantages for us, for society, for others, for those we see every day, for society at large, to grow compassion in ourselves. So, the Karuna Association, we've co-founded some 23 years ago. We try to have this idea of trying ourselves the best we can to also in our personal life, try to grow compassion and manifest compassion in all our relationships. There's a challenge, of course, because interpersonal relations are challenging. So sometimes we don't have the same vision. Sometimes we like some people and we don't like other people. But at least if we don't lose track of why we are here. We are not here to make everyone perfect alone. We are here to accomplish a goal, to relieve suffering. So that it should be enough to inspire us to go on. So that's very important at societal level. We need to have a more altruistic society. And if we want to see the more even bigger global picture, we have so many challenges in our century. It's not just, getting many people out of poverty, remedying to child and mother mortality. There are incredible challenges. One of them is, of course, climate change that could reverse all the progress that has been done. That could be such a big impact that all what we did, just in France, the average lifespan in 1900 was 59 years, or 49, I forgot, 59. Now it's like almost 80. Thanks to antibiotics, vaccination, all these things. No, just in one century. So, but that could be reversed. There's so many fatalities because of climate change. Many diseases like malaria are temperature sensitive. If you were to rise like 3 degrees, the cycle of malaria parasite, first it will go everywhere, it will come up to here. It goes from, I think, 18 days to 10 days. So that's been much more difficult to solve. So all these things make that we need to work together. Selfishness will not do the job, because selfishness is short-sighted. It's my interest in the short term, if possible in the long term, and then may happen what happens. So that is a total loser situation for everybody. We say, why should I care for future generations? I heard some American billionaire saying very seriously on Fox News. He was told about the rise of the ocean. It's Stephen Forbes. We might heard about that guy. He said, I find absurd to change my behavior now for something that happened in 100 years. So maybe that person doesn't have children or grandchildren, or he doesn't think that future humanity, they are not born, who cares? Well, they will be born. They will suffer because of our action, and they will say, you knew and you did nothing. So that's the point. So I know a few scientists of the environment who say that caring for the environment is really a matter of altruism versus selfishness. Because future generations at 2 or 3, we won't see them. So if we don't care, then let's go for it. But if we do care, then they will live, they will suffer. So we should do something, not to leave them a world in a bad shape. In the same way, we need to care now for a mother who cannot feed her children, your husband died or something happened. So, in a way, compassion is the thread that connects the short term, taking care of that mother who cannot feed her kids next week, saving the child who needs a heart operation. That's now, and we need to do it. Then we need the midterm also, like government policies, values in society that will allow people to flourish in life. At the time of a family, of a generation, of a lifetime, to have a reasonably good life. And whatever aspiration you have in life, to be able to accomplish your deepest aspiration. So you need to be in a place where there are basic freedom of movement, of speech, or whatever, not be completely in the, caught in a system that you are all the time under oppression. And you need conditions in society that allow you to flourish and together with others. So that's for the midterm. Then the long term, we have to care for future generations. So the idea, sometimes we speak of sustainable development. Development, people always think in terms of quantitative development, more of something. So we talked with some friends that we should introduce something of sustainable harmony. Sustainable harmony means less inequalities, more social justice. Inequalities have been growing over the last 30 years in all the rich countries. Now there are 15 people who own as much fortune that the 25% poorest of the whole humanity. That's a completely system that is completely thwarted. It's not like working, it's indecent. So we need a social harmony now. And we need to remain in harmony with nature. Because as today, the renewable resources of planet Earth, they are exhausted by a month of July, August. That means we are living on borrowing from the earth. So that's not sustainable. So sustainable harmony is both for now, for a more just society, and for the future. So we can maintain that, do better with less, more going to qualitative development than quantitative. So to take care of basic health is of course part of that, this sustainable harmony, because usually countries measure their progress just by the GDP. But GDP is a measure of financial movement. And even the founder of the concept of GDP, it's called Kuznets after the 1929 crisis, he said by no means GDP is a measure of the well-being of a country. It's just a financial measure. So we need to have a social index, how people are thriving. We need to have an environmental index, how we are preserving our natural environment. So countries don't like to fail, society don't like to fail. So if you have a little bit less in terms of financial thing, but if your social well-being has improved significantly, if the environment has improved significantly, then some of those index will continue to progress. So it's much more holistic and global way of measuring how a country is prospering in a way. So all your wonderful efforts goes in that direction. So I'm extremely grateful for the inspiration you provide and your team and all those who are in the board and all those who support that work, because without the support we go nowhere. So, it's interdependence, it's a big Buddhist concept. Everyone matters. In your hand, you can't say, oh no, this figure is really more important. We need all of them. You need the beneficiaries, the children who save life. They are the reason why you do that. Then you need the doctors on the spot. Everyone who works there, at every level in the hospital. Then you need the one who inspires the whole thing. And then you need those who support that. And then you need, of course, government who allows your work to proceed smoothly without obstacle and even, if possible, help it in a big way. So that all makes the interdependence that something can succeed. So I wish very much that your wonderful endeavor will succeed to the end. I've just visited the construction site, it's already going on. So let's make sure that it will go to fruition, and soon it will not just be cement and iron roads, but open heart surgery and helping all the children from Nepal. So this is what we do in Nepal. We are very happy. It's in 23 years to Karuna Sechen to do a lot of activities. I think we have about 40 people working full time, and we work in several districts. And all together with India and Nepal, a little bit still in Sichuan. Now after 23 years, we have 400,000 beneficiaries every year in the field of health, extreme poverty, and other things. So anyone interested, you can ask Sunita Sharma. And yes, she's here now. So basically, we feel like we are part of this work and we make our own humble contribution. And so I wanted to just mention that. Again, it's not just talk.